All right. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining me this morning. So go ahead and get your posted questions. Get your questions posted on there, and we'll start answering those. So if you're on a desktop, that'll be on the right hand side where you see ask questions of Tuskegee Golf Instructors. I believe it says chat with Tuskegee Golf Instructors. Right below that, you'll see your name, and you can just type it says enter message there. Click send, and then your question will be posted. I'll do these in order. If you are on a mobile device, or something with a smaller screen, it's possible that you may have that chat feature below the video. But if you're on your laptop, your desktop, or something like that, most likely it's on the right. So let's go ahead and get started here. We got a bunch that just posted right now, so that's awesome. Got a bunch of video or a bunch of questions here to start the day. Good deal. So Dennis G says, I've noticed a significant loss in distance, and I'm pretty sure that I'm casting the club. Even though I'm aware of this, I can't stop it. Is there a suggestion for mid-round correction for casting you can suggest? So just to answer your question in short, no. There's no mid-round thing that you can do to stop casting the club. If you're casting the club, it's something that's it's pretty much ingrained into your swing, and it's something that you're going to have to take time and repetition for a while to be able to get some lag in your swing. So that's going to be working through the Top Speed lag course. So unfortunately, the way golf works and the way technique works is with pretty much all technique, especially things that's happening in the downswing because it's happening so fast. It's not like I can just tell you get some lag and you'll get some lag, or tell you to shallow out the club and then you're suddenly going to shallow out the club. I wish it worked that way. Honestly, it'd be a lot easier to play golf. I probably wouldn't have a job if it worked that way. But unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. You got to train things, go slower with it, pause at key checkpoints, really exaggerate the movement, so on and so forth to get that down. If you're really struggling with distance in general, I would recommend going through the 20-minute distance fix course and working on all the things that get you distance, because you said you are pretty sure that you're casting. So what that kind of tells me is that you're not filming your swing. You're not looking at what's going on there to see exactly what's going on. So make sure that you're filming your swing. Go through the 20-minute distance fix. Go through all the pieces in there, because really there's three things that get you distance. One is range of motion. So that's getting a big shoulder turn, high hands. Those are two huge keys to getting distance. Shoulder turn being the biggest one by far. And if you do both of those things, it will also make casting it will make lag easier, because if you bring the club back longer, a lot of times you feel like you don't have to rush the swing, and that's where casting comes from sometimes. It's from getting a short turn and then feeling like you have to really rush the swing on the way down. So make sure you're getting a big shoulder turn. So that's going to be starting. Go through the quick start one, listen to the neural adaptation training, and then go to the catapult drill in week one, and that will get you to where you're getting a bigger shoulder turn. So that's number one, is getting the bigger range of motion. Number two is going to be your sequencing. So that's going to be getting loaded up properly and then getting a good weight shift to your lead side. That's going to be lag in the downswing. So that's a big part of it. It's not going to be the only thing, but it's a part of it as well. That's going to be releasing that lag properly, getting a good release at the golf ball, getting that crack of the whip right at the golf ball. So it starts with those things. And then the last piece is what's called neural adaptation, which is, just to sum it up and take all the kind of sciencey language out of it, it basically just means swinging as hard as you can. I know that may seem trivial, like if I want to swing harder, swing as hard as you can, but it doesn't mean that that's what you're going to be using out on the golf course. What you're going to be doing is you're going to be swinging as hard as you can when you're doing speed training, so that you can get your club head speed up. You can get used to that speed. It's like when runners run downhill, because when you run downhill, you can run faster than what your body would normally run. So that's neural adaptation for running. We're doing neural adaptation for speed training. The more you do it, the more it's going to raise your playing speed up so that you can swing faster. Basically, you're recruiting the bigger muscles in your body, your faster twitch muscles that allow you to have the largest muscle contraction and get the most amount of speed. So that's what you want to do. And then the other piece of neural adaptation is just making sure that you wait, a minute between every swing when you're doing speed training, when you're giving 100% effort, because you need time to replenish your energy while you're doing that. So those are the three things. Go through those pieces. If you are really struggling with distance, you have a significant loss in distance, that's where you need to go to. It's usually not just one thing like casting. Now, there could be big things, but I would go through all of those pieces, make sure that you're really good on all of them. And I would keep going through that course until you are satisfied with the distance that you have. So that's why I recommend to get to the 20-minute distance fix. If you go to the top of the screen there, you're going to see where it has a little instruction tab. If you hover your cursor over that, your mouse over that, it'll expand the menu. It's the first one on there, on the menu there. You could also go to the homepage by clicking the house icon at the top. If you scroll down on the homepage, you'll see all the courses listed there. It should be the very top one or the second one from the top. So you can go there and get started on that course right away. All right. So Abdul R says, on the takeaway, should the club start moving to the inside of the target line immediately? Also, how far inside the target line should the club eventually go? So in general, now what I would say is don't get fixated on the takeaway. First of all, I would just do what feels natural to you. Whatever feels natural, bring in the club back, do that first. And as long as it's not causing any issues in the downswing, then I would just stick to that. Because if you just try to get this perfect takeaway where it's coming back online, on plane and things like that, and it's making no difference in how you hit the ball, then you're kind of wasting your time. You could be using that time to be working on something that really is important. So if you're talking about takeaway, just in general, like a good takeaway basically looks something like this. So if I'm bringing the club back, it's going to be pretty much in line with my hands. So if I have my toe line here, I have a line going from my toes, my club is going to be pretty much in line with that when I bring it back to this point. And then from there, it's continuing to go up to the top. Now, it can be, if it's a little bit out here, that's completely fine too. We see lots of players like that. Jason Day, Ricky Fowler, they bring the club up more out like this. If the club's in a little bit like that, that's generally okay as well. We see lots of players like that. J.B. Holmes brings the club way, way inside. The only time I would say you would change your takeaway is something is happening in the downswing that's caused by your takeaway going in the wrong place. So, for example, what would happen if I brought this club way too far inside? What would be something in the downswing that would make me want to change this? It would be if I saw I was bringing this club way inside, and then at the top of the swing, I saw I was clearly – my momentum was going that way, and then I was clearly coming over the top in the downswing. If that was the case, I may want to work on getting this club to actually work a little bit more outside my hands in the takeaway, so that at the top I've got momentum moving in this direction, which helps me bring that club from the inside. So that would be a situation where I maybe want to do that. But if I'm bringing this club to the inside and I get to the top and I'm able to bring this club nicely down on plane, then I wouldn't waste your time changing anything in your backswing. That all looks good. Now, as far as going the other way, now if I see I'm bringing the club out here and I'm clearly bringing this club way in really flat and then going like that, it's pretty rare. But if you see that, it might be better to feel like you're bringing the club more on plane or a little bit inside to get the momentum moving in the other direction. That's fairly rare. The only two big things on the takeaway that I recommend doing are, number one, get those shoulders moving earlier in the takeaway. I would feel like it's kind of one piece. So by that, I mean my shoulders, my arms, my hands in the club. I try to feel like that's one piece in the top of the swing. And the reason for that is if I feel like this is one piece, when I bring this back, look how much my shoulders have turned already. If I go one piece takeaway, look how much my shoulders have turned. I've only brought the club up to here. So that's going to get my shoulders involved, and that's going to allow me to get a much bigger turn. That's really the biggest thing there. I also like a little bit later wrist set. And if you think about this as one piece, you're going to get that later wrist set. So with the one piece, getting the shoulders more involved, and the later wrist set, that allows you to get a big shoulder turn. It allows it to make it easier to get lag in the downswing, which are two pieces of the Toss Sweet Golf system that are very important. So we're talking power turn for the shoulder turn, and then lag in the backswing. So if I were to just pick my arms up and go like that, well, I'm not getting my shoulders involved, and it's going to be harder for me to get a nice big shoulder turn as I go up to the top. If I get my shoulders going right away, I feel like this is one piece. Now I've got a lot bigger shoulder turn. It's going to be a lot easier for me to get a lot more power in my golf swing. So that'd be very important in the takeaway. And then the later wrist set, what that can help you do is that can help you have, if I were to set my wrist early, if I could go like that and then bring the club up, I don't have very much momentum moving in this direction when I change directions with my hands. And that makes it a little bit harder to generate lag. A lot of times you'll see people, they set the wrist early, they get here, and then they go like that. They cast the club. So if you set the wrist later, so you're here, and then you set the wrist, now I can generate lag in the downswing a lot easier because I've got more momentum moving in the other direction. Now you can overdo that, but you just got to do it the right amount that works for you. So those are the main things that I'd be thinking about in the takeaway. I don't think about inside the hands, outside the hands, way inside the target line, outside the target line, very much at all, unless you can clearly see in your swing that the direction that you're bringing the club up in the backswing, whether you're on plane, below the plane, above the plane, in the backswing, unless you can clearly see that there's momentum moving in any sort of direction that's causing you, like I said, if you're bringing this club way inside and you see clearly that that's making you to come over the top and swing across the ball, then in that case, sure, yeah, I would work on the takeaway because that's going to help you at impact. But if you see you're bringing that club down on plane nicely, there's no momentum moving in any direction at the top, don't waste your time on working on getting that club to work inside, outside, because it's really not going to help you that much. Work on the things that are really going to help you the most. So that's going to be the pieces of the Toss Sweet Golf system, working on the 20-minute distance fix to get your distance up, doing the ball striking masterclass. All these things are really going to help you to improve your golf game the most in the shortest amount of time. All right. So Jim G says, in order to make sure I contact the ground after the ball and get weight shifted, sometimes I end up stepping through my right leg, a la Gary Player. Is that something I should avoid doing? It does help me keep my hips turning and the divots do end up in the right spot. Yeah, that's completely fine to do. I mean, Gary Player did it right, one of the best players of all time. So I have no issue with that. If that helps you to get through the ball and to get to your lead side and it leads to better strikes, anything that leads to you hitting the ball better, I'm not against that at all. That's not something that I would necessarily avoid doing. If that is something that really helps you to get through the ball, get the body opening up, and things like that, then I would definitely recommend that. One thing that I would also recommend doing that as well is I would take a look at your setup and with your feet here, and I just make sure that your feet aren't like this, like dead square, because that can make you have to kind of go like that. If you open up your lead foot and your trail foot a little bit, so open these up, that'll make it easier to kind of swing through, and you may not feel like you have to do that. So it's completely up to you if you want to do that, but stepping through the ball, that's completely fine. Nothing wrong with that at all. All right. So Ronald P says, rotating the lead hand through impact and into the straight line release is a challenge for me. Too often ends up as a pull hook. Please comment on ways to get better at this part of the swing. Thanks, Ron. So let me read that again. Rotating the lead hand through impact and into the straight line release is a challenge for me. Too often ends up as a pull hook. So it sounds like you're closing the face too much. What's probably happening is, it's hard to say without seeing your swing, but what's probably happening is you're flipping the club and turning the handle down. So let's talk about what squares up the club face when you get forward shaft. So if you're someone who's flipping and you want to look at your swing on camera, if you're releasing that club early, meaning I'm coming in and I'm like this at contact, I don't have any forward shaft lean and my hips are pretty square to the ball, and I'm flipping, I'm releasing the club like right here instead of coming in forward shaft lean and releasing the club out here. If you're releasing the club early and you're trying to turn that handle down, all you're going to do is close the face. Because when we come into contact, like this, we have these wrist angles, right? So cupped lead wrist, straight back wrist, and we have no forward shaft lean, club face is square. So if I come in and I'm doing that same thing where I have no forward shaft lean, I'm flipping, but then I flip, and then I also turn the handle down. So I flip, here I am flipping, and then I turn the handle down. Look at that club face. That's an exaggeration, but I've snapped shut that club face. So in order to straighten out this club face, I have to get forward shaft lean. So now you can see I haven't changed my wrist angles, but I've just pushed my hands forward, and now I have forward shaft lean. So what you need to work on is probably that trail hand, not trying to flip that club through. You may need to work on shallowing out the club, because you may shallowing out the club in transition. So that's getting this club to be kind of in this position instead of this position. Excuse me. So if you're in this position here where you're steep in transition, so I'm coming down and I'm steep in transition, what has to happen in order to get this club to be on plane is I have to stand up. And when I stand up, my hands raise, the club head drops. And when I also stand up, I pull away from the golf ball. Now from here, I have to flip the club. So if you're doing that, you're flipping the club and turning the handle down, that's going to be a pull hook like that, because your face is just going to be so far closed when you're coming in. And also, you can be dropping this head underneath too much and getting that club to work more into out. So like I said, Ron, it's hard to say without seeing your swing, but odds are you probably need to to fix it immediately. You probably need to not have the feeling of turning that handle down with that lead hand. You probably need to have the feeling of getting more of a square face, probably feeling like you're holding off the face as you're coming in. So instead of doing that as you're coming in, I try to feel like you're holding it off, like you're not rolling the hands over at all to straighten that out. That would be an instant fix. Now you're still going to flip. And if you want to fix that part of it, that'd be working on the move. You most likely need to get the club shallowing out, getting that club face squaring earlier, and then rotating your body into impact with forward shaft lean. Now that will take some time and some practice working through the move course, but that's most likely what you need to do. Like I said, to know exactly, I would need to see your swing. I do offer unlimited swing review program where you can send me videos of your swing and I can take a look at them and tell you exactly what you need to do to be on the right track and play your best golf. But I don't have spots available right now. So if you want to go to my page and join my waiting list, I'll be happy. We'll be sending out an email soon where we'll be opening up spots and you can go sign up. So go to at the top of the page there above the video, you'll see where it says work one-on-one with Todd Speed Golf instructors. If you click on that, that'll bring you to the page. If you're on any other page on the website as well, you can click on the get a review and you can click on that. And that will take you to the same page, the sales page, where you can learn about unlimited swing reviews and things like that. So if anybody has any questions about swing reviews or anything like that, I'd be happy to answer your questions. All right. Robert B says, what's the scoop with the senior tour players all having a pretty close stance? Does the TSG system allow it, like it, criticize it? So that's not really something that I've noticed. I will say, if you have a closed stance, here's what it can help you do. A closed stance can help you turn your body a little bit more away from the golf ball, and that's something that some seniors struggle with a little bit. But the caveat to that is it can make it a little bit more difficult to get through the golf ball. So it just depends on what works best for you, but closing the stance a little bit. So if you watch, if I have an open stance and my golf ball is right here, let me angle this down a little bit. So if I have an open stance, so my feet are opened up here, my golf ball is over here, that's straight ahead, the target here is the wall. And I'm like this, it's going to be harder for me to turn away from the golf ball because I just can't turn my body enough. Whereas if I have a closed stance, now I can turn my body away from the ball a little bit more, and that can allow me to get a bigger range of motion away from the golf ball. And that may be why you see some seniors doing that. But like I said, it makes it harder to open up the body as you're coming into contact. But you just got to find what works best for you. The other thing that it makes it easier to do is it makes it easier with a driver to hit up on the golf ball. So if you are have the more of a closed stance, it's easier to get this club to work from the inside, bottom out before the golf ball and hit up on it, which is better for distance as well. And then it's also easier to hit a draw if you're trying to hit a draw, like a trap draw or something like that, which you often see senior players hitting. It's easier to do that as well. You just got to do what works best for you. The TSG system, works with whether you have a closed stance or an open stance. You still want to be nice and angled away from the target and have a stable spine and be opening up as you're coming into contact. You still want to be getting a big shoulder turn. You still want to be generating lag in the downswing. You want to have a good compression line. You don't want to be bumping your hips out or anything like that. But the downfall to that closed stance is it's hard to get the body to open up enough to be able to, release this club out in front. So you just have to find what works best for you. Fool around with it. Work with a little bit of a closed stance. Work with an open stance. See what that does for you. There's nothing. There's no universal truth that says you have to use a square stance or you have to use an open stance or closed stance. You use what works best for you and what allows you to get the best contact. Universal truths are things like the Tasvi Golf system. All great players have a stable fluid spine, great shoulder turn, and so on and so forth. So those are the universal truths that I would stick to. And those are the things I make sure I'm doing in my swing. Everything else is really just kind of your swing signature. It's what works best for you. Some players, a closed stance is going to be disastrous. They're not going to hit the ball very well. They're going to top it. They're going to do all sorts of things. Some other players, it's going to be the best thing for them. It's going to allow them to get a much bigger turn and things like that. So everybody's a little bit different, but that would be one. I don't have any issue with it, but there are pros and cons to it, as there are with about anything. Right. Jim G says, do you have to do the move correctly to get shaft lean at impact? Yes and no. So you can get shaft lean at impact without doing the move, but you won't be able to square up the club face if you don't do the move. So the move is basically a combination of two things. It's the shallowing of the club and it's the squaring of the club face at impact when you have forward shaft lean. So if you come into impact and you don't turn this handle down and square the club face, you may be doing the move and you don't even realize it. But if you come in like this, that's not turning the handle down. I have forward shaft lean here. I'm leaning the shaft forward, but my face is wide open. I'm not doing the move. So to square up that face, I've got to turn that handle down. I tell you what, it's hard to get forward shaft lean if you are coming down steep. The only way you can really do it is if you kind of come down and you come over the top and you kind of chop down into the golf ball. But that's not something that most people are going to do. So yes, it is possible to get forward shaft lean, but it's not possible to hit the ball very well, to hit the ball straight without doing the move. The move is what allows you to have that club on plane as you're coming down. It's what allows you to be able to rotate your body into impact. It's what allows you to square up the club face when you're coming into impact with forward shaft lean. It's, if you are getting forward shaft lean and you are hitting the ball well, then you're doing the move whether you realize it or not. So you can get forward shaft lean. It's just a matter of can you get good contact with it? And you really won't be able to do it without doing the move correctly. Good question, Jim. Thank you. All right. So Robert B says, Q, I watched the left arm in crazy detail. I guess I'm obsessed with knowing the exact role of the left arm in the downswing. I suspect it's taking over all other aspects of my swing during the downswing. Lots of golf instructors write that only the upper arm, tricep, swing, the club, and the rest of its muscles are passive and loosey-goosey to keep the lag. Or am I suffering from the paralysis of something? So I would say that you are probably overthinking it. You're way too out in the woods too much. You're using muscles in your forearm. You are using your tricep. You're using a lot of muscles and you don't even realize it. To say that everything's going to be loosey-goosey, that's completely wrong because you have to put pressure into this grip. Like if you were to be loosey, if you were truly to be loosey goosey here, and I were to go like this, I would just that club would just go flying out of my hand. I have to put force into this handle with my lead hand in order to be able to hold on to it, and that happens a lot more as I'm coming into impact. As that club's whipping through impact, I'm putting more force into this handle. So what you want to think is these first few fingers in this lead hand. So my pinky, ring, and middle finger, I'm putting pressure into the grip, and that's going to create a fulcrum that's going to make it a lot easier for me to whip this club through there. So that's what I'd be thinking about. There's no loosey-goosiness. I would feel like it's more of a whip, like you're coming through and you're able to whip this club through impact, like you're cracking a whip, essentially. Now, there is going to be kind of a little bit of a, I wouldn't call it loosey-goosey, but everyone's feelings are different. You know, it may feel a little bit loosey-goosey to you, but to me, it feels more like a, like I'm putting a lot of force into something and I'm trying to just crack the whip. Like to me, like cracking a whip, that doesn't feel like a loosey-goosey thing to me. It feels like I'm really trying to whip something really, really hard. And that's the kind of feeling that you want to have at contact, is you're cracking the whip right there as you're coming through. So that'd be the best feeling to have. But I wouldn't get too much out in the woods with this. It's really not, it doesn't have to be that complicated. I wouldn't be trying to think like I'm coming down and I'm only trying to use my tricep muscle. I'd be trying to think, I'm trying to get this crack of the whip as I'm coming down impact. Feel like what's going on at impact is the most important thing, because that is the most important thing. Really try to crack that whip in there. Feel that force in these first few fingers of that lead hand, and really feel like you're trying to crack that whip through there, and you'll get some much better results. So Michael G says, hi Q, in general, fades go shorter than draws, everything else being equal, same club head speed, good contact, etc. What is the normal loss of distance percentage-wise for a 150-yard shot from a 10 yards to a 10-yard fade? So there's lots of there's lots of factors in there that can make a difference. Now, I will say, all things equal, a fade does not go shorter than a draw. All things equal. What makes it unequal is when we hit a fade, we open the face to the path. So what happens is that when we open the face, that adds loft. And when you add loft, it takes off some distance. And when we hit a draw, we're closing the face. And but if we have the same amount of forward shaftling when we do either one of those, then we'll end up with the same distance. But since we don't typically do that, that's how we lose distance, because we're opening the face which adds a little bit of loft. So like I said, it's hard to say depending on the club. It's just something you're going to have to go out and experiment with and work on. On a 150-yard shot, depending on the club that you're using, let's say you're using an 8-iron or a 9-iron, 150 yards. If you're hitting a 10-yard draw from that far, that's too much. You're going to lose a lot of distance off of that. I wouldn't be trying to curve the ball that much. If you're curving the ball more than, on that short of a shot, if you're curving the ball more than 5 yards, you're going to be losing distance whether you're hitting a draw or a fade, because you're putting too much curvature on your shot. You're hitting it too much with a glancing blow in order to make that happen. Or you're hitting it on an off-center strike in order to make that happen. So you will lose distance for sure, whether you're hitting a draw or a fade. More so with a fade if you are opening the face and adding loft to it, not getting forward shaftling with it. It's really just something you're going to have to go out and work on. Loss of distance, it could be so many factors, but I would just imagine, like I said, go out and work on this. See what it is for you. I don't want to tell you it's going to be 10 yards, because then you may go out and work on it and it's only 4 yards. Or you may go out and play and you may play a fade and you only lose 2 yards off your fade, or maybe you lose 15 yards off your fade, and my answer would be way off, because there's no definitive answer to it. If you don't get more forward shaftling, you're going to lose some distance with your fade. If you're fading it more than a few yards, more than 5 yards for sure, you're going to be losing distance there. So keep in mind that the more you fade the ball, the more you curve the ball, the more distance you're going to lose because you're hitting the ball with a glancing blow. So if you imagine to hit a straight shot, that's a center face, that's a square club path, and that's a square club face. That's maximum compression. I'm driving in this nail. I'm taking this hammer and I'm going straight down into that nail. I'm just going straight down in there, and that's driving that nail the most efficient way into that piece of wood. If I'm hitting a fade, I'm actually coming in and I'm hitting that nail kind of like this. Instead of going straight down, I'm kind of going into it like that. So I'm hitting it with more of a glancing blow, and it's not driving that nail in as much. So there's too many factors in there to be able to tell you a normal loss of distance or gain of distance or anything like that, or percentage. There's just too many factors. It depends on where you strike it on the face. It depends on if you make ball first contact. It depends on how much of a draw or how much of a fade you put on it. It depends on how much forward shaft lean you already have. There's lots of factors in there that there's just not a clear cut. You just have to go out and work on it and go and see what kind of difference you get when you do it, and see what it is for you. Robert B says, Q, thanks for the Gary Player move answer. No problem. Glad I could help. All right, so let's keep on answering questions. So Jim G says, just a comment. Wanted you and Clay to know how much I appreciate what you have put together. I've been a member for a few years and I'm going through the BSMC, but I'm constantly amazed at how many different high quality videos you have on the site. Distance, the system, flexibility videos, and mind game videos, short game, etc. And these office hours are great. Thanks. Hey, Jim, thanks for the feedback. I'm glad you're enjoying everything. And hopefully you keep enjoying your membership for years to come. All right, so Mauricio R says, is it possible that flipping is caused by slowing leading arm in relationship to trailing arm right before impact? It definitely, if your lead arm is coming down and you stop with your lead arm and keep going with your trail arm, that can definitely cause a flip. But that's not very common. Usually the flip is caused by a few things. One, it's either caused by casting the club. Once you get that club casting to begin with, you're most likely going to flip the club. It's hard to stop it. Now, some people I've seen it. It's fairly rare, but I've seen people who cast the club and still get forward shaft lean and don't flip it. But it's fairly rare. Often it's caused by coming down steep, because when you come down steep, when you're like in this position right here, you'll typically stand up. And when you stand up to get that club to come back down playing, you get further away from the golf ball and you have to flip to get to it. It could be how you square up the face. If you are used to squaring up the face by really pushing this trail wrist through, so this feels very powerful to a lot of people. A lot of people feel like this is a very powerful move. They come in and they do this with this trail wrist. They really push that club through there. It feels very, very powerful. But the reality is that you're adding loft to the club face. And when you do that, it makes it actually a less of a powerful strike. So what those people need to do is work on the move, which is turning that handle down and getting in this kind of position. If you look at every tour player who's get forward shaft lean, that trail wrist is in this kind of position at contact. That feels very weak for a lot of people. A lot of people like to be in this kind of position at contact because it feels very strong. It's your dominant hand. You're really flipping that club through. So that's basically the main things that cause a flip. Another thing could be just not using the lower body at all. If you don't create any momentum or get the body opening up as you're coming into impact, that can be a cause of it. So you can be shallowing out the club nicely. You can be getting lag. But if you just come down and you stop the hips and don't continue to rotate open, that can cause you to flip the club because it sends a chain reaction through your body. So if you think, if I start my arm, kind of like what you were saying, the lead arm really slows down. If I start my lead arm and then just stop, that club is going to want to flip forward. So that's kind of a chain reaction of the body. If I start my hips and then I just kind of stop, or I start, thrusting my hips toward the target or something like that instead of rotating, what happens is that sends a chain reaction through my body. So my shoulders go, then my arms go, then my hands and the club goes, and it goes too early. We want all those things to happen. We want all those things to release, but we want that chain reaction to happen out here in front where we release the club, not at the golf ball. So we want to continue to rotate and then have the hips slow down as we're coming through, and then allow that club to release out in front. So those are the main things, and one can cause the other one. So if you're coming down steep, a lot of times you won't rotate your hips. So I'll come down here, I won't rotate my hips, and I'll go like that. Or I'll shallow out the club, get lag, and I'll stop rotating my hips and then have to go like that. So there's all kinds of things that can cause it. And really, it's a hard thing to stop doing, no matter which one it is. If it's lag, if it's opening up of the hips, because it's so foreign, it's happening in the downswing, and it's so foreign to what you're doing right now that it'll just take a lot of time and effort for you to get there. So what I would recommend doing is work on things like your speed, get that working really, really good. Work on your ball striking, your skill ability, get that working really, really good. And then once you get a good sense of those, then it may be good to work on some technique type things and getting that in order so that you can compress the ball a little bit more. But working on your speed and working on skill level type stuff like the ball striking masterclass, that's going to help you to, in the fastest way and in the funnest way, I think, be able to work on that. Because trust me, working on getting forward shaft lean, I've gone through it. It is not an easy thing to do. It can be very, very frustrating at times, and it can make it not very fun at times. Like I've gone through it and just, basically felt like I don't want to do this anymore. I just want to go play golf. But then, you go and play golf and you hit some sky balls, and things like that. Like, I got to get this worked out. So you go back to it and work on it some more. And then eventually, you get the reps in, you get comfortable with it, and you start compressing the ball a little bit more. But that takes time and repetition. It'll take a lot of failure and things like that to get that down. So keep that in mind. It's not for everybody to work on. If you're a weekend warrior and you're a flipper and you don't have a lot of time to practice and you just want to go play all the time, then I'd be working on the 20-minute distance fix and skill level type stuff and getting a bigger shoulder turn and things like that. Those are the easy things to do, and they're things that are going to help you the most with your game. But working on stuff that's happening in the downswing with technique-wise, it's so difficult and it takes so much time that it's only really for people that are super avid golfers that that want to put in the time and the effort to allow that to happen. So Robert B says, love it, crack the whip. Yeah, Q. All right, awesome. Yeah, that's a really good feeling to have, almost like you're cracking the whip as you're coming through. All right, so Stephen S says, Q, I have been following the TSG program for about 6 months. I do well in the practice range. How can I transfer that to the golf course? So I get this question a lot of times. I hear people talking, hey, I'm like Steph Curry, it's like when you're playing pig, and you're shooting baskets and you're great in pig, but when you get in a basketball game, you can't make a shot to save your life. And same thing happens with golfers. They go to the range, you're like Michael Jordan, Steph Curry on the range, everything's straight and perfect, great contact. Then you get on the course and everything changes. Well, there's one thing you want to understand is that you're never going to hit the ball as good on the course as you do on the range in general. And the reason for that is lots of reasons, actually. So when you're on the range, number one is that it's pretty much a perfectly flat lie every single time, right? The ball's not above your feet. It's not below your feet. It's not downhill lie, uphill lie. It's pretty much perfect every single time. And also, you give yourself a perfect lie every single time. You're not hitting from the rough. You're not hitting from a divot. You're hitting, you fluff that ball up there nicely every single time to give yourself a perfect lie. And when you're hitting off of flat ground, perfect lie every single time, and maybe you're on a mat and you're hitting off of a mat every time, you're going to hit better golf shots when that is the situation. So what I actually recommend doing is to try to make your practice as much on the range, as much like it is on the golf course as possible. So what I typically do is I'll go to the range, I'll work on some ball striking, some speeds, maybe a little bit of technique stuff. And then at the end, with the last 30 or so balls, I'll play 9 holes on the range And what I'll do when I do that is I'll just imagine a course that I know really well. And it's really, really good if you're preparing for a tournament. So let's say you're going and you're paying some member guest tomorrow, and you know the course pretty well in your head. Or even if you have the score, you don't know the course, get the scorecard, and you can usually see a map of the hole and get an idea of what's going on, and play the hole in your head. So let's say the first hole, it's a 400-yard par 3, or sorry, a 400-yard par 4. I've got OB left. It's pretty open to the right, and it's kind of a dog leg to the left. And this would be a driver hole for me. This would be you can experiment hitting different shots as well, hitting a 3-wood and say or something like that. So for me, I'm thinking, okay, I look at this hole and I see I want to hit a draw to start it away from the trouble and bring it back in and work it right into the dog leg. And I want to start it down the right side of the fairway and curve it back. So what I do is I go through my pre-shot routine. I would step up and I would hit the shot. And based on what happened with that shot, if I hit it perfectly right down the middle, so I hit a 300-yard drive right down the pipe, right where I wanted to go, I got a 100-yard wedge in, then I would grab my 100-yard club and I would imagine, okay, this flag is on the left-hand side. I'm going to aim it 5 yards to the right and maybe just try to hit a little draw on it and try to work it in toward the hole. So then I would go and I would do that. I would hit that exact same shot. And if I chunked it, then maybe I would have a 50-yard shot. Or if I bladed it, maybe I would hit it way over, and I would have a chip shot, and then I would hit a chip shot on my next shot. If I hit it on the green, the best part about this game is you make all of the putts. So you just go on to the next hole. So you just play out every hole in your mind every hole in your mind into the green. Now, if you hit it in the rough, I mean, usually there's not rough in the on the range, right? So if there is, then you can hit it from the rough. But if there isn't, just kind of give yourself a crappy lie. Don't set it perfectly up in the grass. Give yourself kind of a crappy lie and hit out of that. If you hit it in the bunker, put it in a divot or something like that and hit kind of a chip shot out of it. Do your best to replicate what's going on. There's some things you're not going to be able to replicate exactly, but just do your best and play the 9 holes with yourself on the range, and that can help you be able to translate some of what you're doing on the range to the golf courses. It's putting you in real situations. Make a bet against yourself. It puts pressure on you as well. That's the other thing about hitting on the range versus out on the golf course is you have no pressure. You have this mound of golf balls there that if you hit a bad one, you can just roll another one over and hit another one and over and over and over. And when you're on the golf course, you can't do that, right? Not without penalty, right? So that's basically what it comes down to. A lot of people feel like also that they hit the ball a lot better on the range, when the reality is that sometimes that they don't necessarily hit the ball that much better. It's just that they kind of forget the bad ones because they just roll over another one. But when you hit a bad one on the golf course, you hit it in the water, you remember that one. But if you hit that same bad shot in the range, you're not likely going to remember it, right? So just keep those things in mind. But if you do that little game at the end with the last 30 or so balls, even if you just go to the range and do that can help you translate what you're doing on the course. All right, so Jim G says, suggestions for improving pitching from 40, 50, 60, and 90 yards. I would recommend working through our top speed golf wedge system. We have a great wedge system on the course where Clay goes over techniques with wedges, being able to dial in those wedges, hit the technique, and so on and so forth. So I'd recommend working through that course and really dialing those things in. So to get to that course, I would go to the house icon at the top of the page there, click on that. That's going to take you to the home page. If you scroll down on the home page, you'll see all the courses. Click on that Top Speed Golf Wedge System course and get started in there. If you have any specific questions about pitching and things like that, I'd be happy to answer. But just in general, if you're just wanting to improve from wedge distance, work through that wedge system course, and it'll help you out quite a bit. So Robert B says, I watched Clay's slow-mo swing video. It hurt to watch the driver impact position, extreme reverse C position, mainly because his head moves away from the target quite a bit before impact. Are we supposed to do that, especially at 60 and 70 pounds overweight? Ouch. So I wouldn't say the clay has an extreme reverse C, but it is something that can give you more distance. And that's more of he's just pushing into the ground. So he's coming into contact. He's coming in and he's really pushing into the ground with the lead leg, and that's pushing his head and his shoulder back. So if you imagine if I take this club and I just go like that, it goes that fast. But if I take this club and I pull up on it as I let it go, it's going to go faster. And that's what's happening in the swing. As he's coming down, he's pushing into the ground. He's really whipping that club through there. So that is something that we talk about in the compression line course. But yeah, you can only do what you're capable of. If you're not capable of doing that, you can only do what you're capable of. So it's not something that everyone's going to be able to do, but it is something that we talk about in the compression line course. There's a video in there that's called whip the club like a clothes hanger, and it's kind of what Clay's talking about. Like if you got a clothes hanger, I don't know if I have one handy or not. Thought I might have one in this closet, but if you got a clothes hanger and you're kind of whipping around your finger, right? Well, you're trying to whip that at the end. So that's kind of what's happening as you're coming in, is you're trying to get that clothes hanger to whip as you're coming through contact, trying to get that club to whip as you're coming through contact. And that comes from straightening of that lead leg, getting these hands low, and then straightening of that lead leg to push this hip up and back. That's going to push your shoulder up and back, and that's going to move your hand up. So you get here, then the hands move up, and that really helps you to whip this club through there a little bit more and get a little extra speed. All right. So Jim G says, with the step drill, you step at your club is still going back. Step as your club is still going back. Can you comment on when and how to start the forward weight shift? Yeah, so that's exactly right. So when you're doing the step drill, so if you're not familiar with what the step drill is, you can find this in many videos on the website. It's in the 20-minute distance fix course, aka the sumo step. It's the same thing. There's also a great video on the website that I really like where Clay demonstrates the step drill. It's called How to Start the Downswing. I'd highly recommend that video. If you search downswing on the website, you'll get some search results there. I believe it's the 4th video down on there, and it's called How to Start the Downswing. It's got some yellow lettering in the thumbnail. That's the video I'm talking about where Clay demonstrates the step drill. But basically what you're doing is you're starting with your feet together, and as soon as this club goes back, you are getting your momentum moving forward. What you're going to see with most tour players, if you draw a line on the outside of their hip at a dress, so it goes outside of their hip down to their ankles, what you're going to see is they'll never cross into that line. And then you'll see in the downswing, as they get about right here, you're going to see they're going to start coming off of that line. So they're starting to move forward a little bit. And that way, when the arms are switching directions, now I've got pressure in this lead foot, and I'm able to get my body to start rotating. If you're here and you're still on your back foot and you start your arms down, and when you still got pressure in this trail foot, most of your pressure in the trail foot, it's too late. You're just going to fly your arms in front of your body, and you're not going to sequence properly. So that's what you're going to want to do working on that step drill is work on the step drill, exaggerate getting that momentum going forward in the backswing, and then try to translate that, take a normal practice swing where you're taking your normal stance, no step or anything like that, and try to translate that to your swing where you're doing that. And then from there, then you can try to apply that with the golf ball. All right. So Steve P says, good morning. There was a discount code for Fit for Golf that I saw yesterday. Can't find it today. Can you provide it? So we are not affiliated with Fit for Golf. I think you may be thinking of some other website maybe, but yeah, we are not affiliated with Fit for Golf. So fortunately, I don't have a discount code I can provide you. I wish I did, but I'm not even familiar with what Fit for Golf is. Unfortunately, I don't have anything I can give you, Steve. I'd maybe look at your trash can and your inbox maybe and see if you got an email from something else. Maybe it was from Super Speed Golf, and you might have us confused with them. Sometimes people get us confused with Super Speed Golf. That's a completely different company. They're the ones that sell so you can do the overspeed training, which is good. That's what neural adaptation is. So that's good for distance. But yeah, sorry, I don't have a discount code I can give you. So Robert B says, if I slide on the ball in the downswing, does that contribute to an early release of lag before impact, especially if my head doesn't stay behind the ball? So if you are sliding, it means you're not rotating. So if you're sliding forward like this, yes, that usually is going to cause an early release of the club because you're not really rotating open the body. If you don't rotate open the body, from this example earlier, imagine that my lead arm is my body, and then the club is my upper body, right? So if I stop my lead arm here being my lower body, that club wants to flip forward. If I stop suddenly, it's going to want to flip forward. That's what's happening with the lower body. If I slide, that's stalling my hips, and then now my upper body is just going to want to go like that. So yeah, that can cause an early release for sure. All right. So Steve T says, can you talk about the weight distribution at the various parts of the swing setup, top of the backswing, impact, finish? So yes. So what we want to do first is I want to distinguish between pressure distribution and weight distribution. So when we're talking about weight, we're talking about momentum. We're talking about center of mass, where the momentum of that and where it's moving. So we can have a weight shift, but we can also have a pressure where the pressure is different. So basically, if I'm not moving around, then my weight and my pressure are going to be pretty even lined up with each other. But if I get momentum where I'm moving like this, it's like when you're walking. When I'm walking, my momentum is moving in this direction. My weight is shifting that way. But my pressure, let me get on my feet here. My pressure, if I'm walking this way, I have pressure in my trail foot going that way, going back behind me. It's pointing in that direction, but my momentum is moving that way. And then once I put my foot down, now I have more pressure right here, and then I'm going into the same thing. So that's the same thing that's happening in the golf swing. If you're properly shifting your weight, then what should be happening is your pressure is building up, pressure is still building up, and now I'm starting to get some weight transferring, but my pressure is still building up. And then I get to the top of the swing, and now my pressure is shifting. Now my weight is on my lead side, and now my pressure is really a lot right here as I'm coming in into impact. So let's talk about the various points of pressure in the feet and what you're feeling. I think people a lot of times think in weight shift is what they're feeling in the feet, because it's something that they can feel, whereas the momentum in something, it's not necessarily that they're feeling as well. So let's talk about at address. So if you're not familiar with what Swing Catalyst is a company that makes this pad. It looks like a welcome mat to your house. It's basically a pad. It's a very, very expensive welcome mat. I think it's like $10,000 or something like that. But basically, it's got a bunch of sensors in it, and it measures the amount of pressure that you're putting into it with your feet. So Swing Catalyst measured a lot of players, tour players, like the best players in the world, to see what their pressure distributions were throughout the swing. So at address, what they found is that most tour players are going to have just a little bit of extra pressure in that lead side. It's 55-45. Now, I'm not saying go out and really work on trying to get a little bit more pressure in your lead side. As long as you are feeling balanced at address, you're going to be in good shape. But they found that most of the best players in the world are 55-45. And I believe the reason for that is that it's because they're basically gearing up for a momentum shift. So it's just like when I was walking, right? I had more pressure going in this direction as my momentum was going forward. It's the same thing. When you're starting that backswing, you have a little bit more pressure going here so that you can get just a little bit of momentum going to your trail side to make it easier to load up. So that's why I believe tour players do that. But I wouldn't say go out and really focus on getting that 55-45. Just try to be balanced. As long as you're balanced, you're going to be in good shape there. The next piece is, as we're going up to the top, they found that tour players had 75-80% of the pressure that they were putting into the ground was in this trail foot here. So at the very, very top of the swing, 75, 80% of the pressure was in that trail foot. And then as they're coming into contact, they found that was reversed. Now 75 to 80% of the pressure was now in that lead foot. Now remember, weight shift and pressure shift, two different things. The weight was going forward, my momentum was going forward as my pressure was going up in the backswing. So that's very, very important. And that's what makes it possible to get this pressure in the lead foot. Because if I don't get my momentum moving forward, if I don't get my momentum going forward until I get my hands going down, I'm most likely only going to get about 60% of pressure, 50% of pressure in my lead foot, excuse me. And that's if you're lucky. A lot of times I see a lot of people are getting, it's the opposite. They're kind of staying loaded up on their trail foot, a lot of pressure there. And then they don't really get that pressure in the lead foot until the hands and the arms are bringing them all the way through. So those are people who don't get a proper weight shift. So that's what's really important about getting that proper weight shift. You got to get that momentum shifting to your lead side. And that's by working through the step drill that I talked about earlier. So the next thing that you need to do as you're coming through, so 75, 80% of the pressure is on that lead foot at contact. And then in the full finish, when you're in that full finish position, you're talking about 90, 95%. So really, in your trail foot, when you're kind of up on your toes here, so if I kind of angle this down, in my trail foot, when I'm kind of up on my toes here, that's basically just the weight of my foot, or the weight of my leg that's putting pressure into the ground. I'm mostly on my lead side here. So 90, 95% of the pressure is going to be on that lead foot. So yeah, that's what Swing Catalyst found. If you want to learn more about Swing Catalyst, they actually have a great free education on their website where you can kind of go through and understand a little bit more about pressure shift and weight shift and things like that. I highly recommend it. You just go to swingcatalyst.com. It's a free education, like I said, and check it out. They also have some great blog posts and things like that if you want to check out that as well. If you're a golf nerd like me and you like to read about all that kind of stuff, I think it's pretty interesting. You can go check it out. All right. So Robert B says, if my head gets over or in front of the ball a bit, does this kill lag as well? Is it usually a fatal to a decent golf shot? You can hit good golf shots doing this. So you're talking about where you're kind of like this, where you're kind of coming in. So typically what happens is you're kind of chop it down into the ball is typically what happens. Or to stop that chopping down of the ball, you're definitely going to get rid of your lag because you'll slide forward, and because you don't want to chop down into the golf ball, you'll do this. So you'll slide forward and then kind of go like that as you're coming through. So early release and really it's more difficult to hit a good golf shot. It doesn't mean you can't hit a good golf shot, because really to hit a good golf shot, all you have to do, and I say this kind of jokingly, but all you have to do is, number one, hit the ball in the center of the club face. And you can actually hit good golf shots if you don't hit in the center of the club face if you're lucky. But in general, you got to hit the ball in the center of the club face. So can I still hit the ball in the center of the club face if I'm sliding forward and doing this? Absolutely, you can. The next piece is I have to hit it with a square club face. So does this stop me completely from squaring up the club face? No, I can still square up the club face. You have to have your club path to be on the right plane. So either in to out to in, on plane, whatever it might be for the shot that you're trying to hit. So can I still get the club on plane if I'm doing that? Yeah, I can. Absolutely. And the last part is ball first contact. Not hitting the ground before the golf ball. So can I get ball first contact if I'm kind of sliding forward like this? Absolutely, I can. So you can still hit good golf shots. It's just harder to do so because when you are doing that, one, you are flipping the club. So when you release your lag and flip the club, a lot of times that club, if you're not chopping down into it, that club's going to come in very, very shallow with the turf. So it's hard to hit a good golf shot. It's hard to get that strike in the center of the face. It's harder unless you have that ball sitting up on tee. If you're on a really tight lie, it's going to be pretty difficult. You're going to hit shots really, really thin. So to hit an absolutely perfect shot, those four things got to line up. Or you have to kind of get lucky with certain things being off and you're getting the result that you want. But you can have, here's the thing, you can have terrible technique. You can do everything wrong in the Top Speed Golf system, and you can still hit good golf shots. as long as those 4 things happen. So center face contact, ball first contact, square club face, and club path on plane. You can still hit great golf shots. You can have a perfect technique, and if one of those things is way off, let's say that I hit it way out here on the toe, that's not going to be a good golf shot. Or let's say I hit 6 inches behind the golf ball. That's not going to be a good shot. Let's say that I swung my path way too much out to in, and I cut way across it and hit a big old pull. That's not going to be a good shot, right? So you can have perfect technique, do everything, the Top Speed Golf System absolutely perfectly, and hit a absolutely horrible golf shot. So that just kind of brings me to my point that impact is really the only thing that really matters the most. Anything that you do in your technique, it has to be to improve what's going on at contact. What the Top Speed Golf System does is it allows you to be in that position more consistently where you can get really good contact on the golf ball. So those are the 5 things plus the move that allow you to get into those positions. So hopefully that helps, Robert. But yeah, if you're sliding, it's just going to be a little bit harder to hit a good golf shot. If you get to where you are rotating, getting, good weight shift, getting the body to rotate open, turn this handle down, you're going to be able to get some forward shaft lean compression on the ball. It's going to be easier to control your ball first contact. It's going to be easier to get the strike higher on the face instead of really thin shots all the time. There's all sorts of things that can happen there. So it's really, there's all kinds of things that you can do to help with your ball striking for sure. So last question here from David W. here. David W. says, maybe a dumb question, but I've never wore my prescription glasses when golfing. They are too hard to keep clean. Do you think that it is detrimental to my game, and should I force myself to get used to them? Seems like I am seeing the ball differently with them on, maybe mental. So it really depends on how bad your eyes are. I don't usually wear my glasses when I play golf. I usually wear sunglasses that are rimless on the bottom, and I actually lost my prescription ones a long time ago and decided I'm not going to spend $600 on a pair of sunglasses just so you lose them again. So I just have like normal sunglasses that I wear, but my eyes are not that bad. Like it's basically like the difference between, for me, it's the difference between watching something in HD on TV versus like standard definition. Like when I have my glasses on, I can see all the individual leaves on the tree. When I don't have my glasses on, it kind of just looks like a green blob of a tree. So that's basically the difference for me. I can still play golf and see the ball fine. It's harder for me to see after I hit it, but I generally don't. Now, if it's nice and cool out and it's overcast and there's not a lot of sun out there, a lot of times I will play golf with my glasses. And I really don't see much of a difference. I think it's really just to each their own on that. Some people, if you have really bad eyes and you can't hardly see without your glasses on, then you probably should be wearing your glasses, or at least have some sort of glasses that you use to play golf. So sunglasses, contacts, or something like that. But it really just depends on your specific needs. What I'd recommend doing is just go out and to the range, hit half of a bucket with your glasses on, half a bucket with your glasses off, and see if there's really a big difference there in your strikes. And that should answer your question for you and help you understand exactly what you need to do. I'm sorry, I don't have a definitive. I can only tell you from my experience with golfing with and without glasses. So we're after 10. So thanks everybody for joining me today. We'll be back here tomorrow afternoon, Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern time. Again, you can post your questions up to an hour before. So 2 p.m. Eastern time, you can start posting your questions at that time. And then we'll start getting them answered at 3 p.m. So again, thanks everybody for joining me. Everybody have a great rest of your day. And I'll talk to you next time.